The shotgun blast echoed like God's own thunder, shattering the stained-glass window of St. Mary's Episcopal Church in the heart of Elmwood, Ohio. Shards rained down on Father Elias Hawthorne as he clutched the pulpit, his knuckles white against the oak, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead. "Paul!" he roared, voice cracking like dry timber, eyes wild with a father's terror, not for the sin, but for the son who pulled the trigger. In the pews, the congregation froze, Bibles slipping from laps, as 22-year-old Paul Hawthorne dropped the empty shell, his hands trembling not from recoil, but from the weight of a secret that had festered longer than the rust on that old Remington. Paul's breath came in ragged gasps, the acrid smell of gunpowder mixing with the incense that still lingered from morning prayer. He'd aimed high, always high, because this wasn't about ending anything. It was about breaking free, about screaming into the void of a life built on whispers and Bible verses twisted into chains. Father Elias staggered forward, his black cassock torn at the sleeve, and grabbed Paul's shoulders. "What in the Lord's name have you done? Boy, this is blasphemy, suicide by proxy." But Paul's eyes, those stormy gray eyes that mirrored his father's in calmer days, burned with something fiercer than repentance. "Blasphemy?" he spat, voice low and venomous. "You preached love thy neighbor, Dad. But you never said a damn thing about loving yourself." The church doors burst open then, and in rushed Andrew, Paul's older brother by blood, but more father than sibling since their mother vanished into the bottle and the night when Paul was 8. Andrew, 31, built like a linebacker gone to seed, with salt and pepper hair cropped military short and a jaw that could cut glass, was the rock of the Hawthorne men. He was the one who'd bandaged knees, taught Paul to drive stick on the backroads of Lake Erie, and whispered, "It's okay, kid," when the nightmares came. Now, he barreled down the aisle, his work boots thudding against the red carpet, face ashen under the fluorescent lights. "Paul, Jesus Christ, what the hell?" He skidded to a halt, eyes flicking from the shattered Virgin Mary mosaic to the gun at Paul's feet, then to their father, who sagged against the altar like a puppet with cut strings. In that frozen heartbeat, the three of them formed a tableau straight out of some Old Testament reckoning. Father, Son, and the brother who'd bridged them all. Elmwood wasn't big enough for secrets this size. 15,000 souls packed into clapboard houses and cornfields that stretched to the horizon. But the Hawthornes had carried theirs like a family heirloom, polished and hidden in the attic of their Victorian parsonage on Maple Street. Father Elias, the revered rector who'd led St. Mary's for 30 years, was the pillar of piety in a town where Sundays meant potlucks and prayer chains. His sermons on redemption had pulled addicts from the bottle, widows from despair. But beneath the collar, he was a man who'd buried his wife's infidelity and his own doubts in the same grave. Paul had tried. God, how he'd tried. From the cradle, Father Elias had drilled it into him. The flesh is weak, son, but the spirit is armor. Puberty hit like a freight train when Paul was 14, and with it came the dreams, the ones that left him sweat-soaked and ashamed, tangled in sheets with visions of boys from the youth group, their laughter turning to touches he couldn't confess. Andrew knew, of course. Andrew always knew. He caught Paul once, staring too long at the quarterback during a backyard barbecue, and instead of judgment, he'd clapped a hand on Paul's shoulder and said, "Town's small, hearts are smaller. Keep it locked down, brother." That was Andrew's way, practical as a plow, steady as the Ohio River. He joined the Marines right out of high school to escape the parsonage's suffocating grace. Come back with a Purple Heart and a mechanic's shop on the edge of town, fixing transmissions for farmers who tithed in gossip. But trying to be straight, that was Paul's cross, heavier than any sermon. At 18, he dated Sarah Jenkins, the deacon's daughter with butterblonde hair and a laugh like wind chimes. They'd held hands at the county fair, stolen kisses behind the Ferris wheel, even let it go further one humid July night in her daddy's hayloft. Felt like checking a box, like proving to Father Elias and to himself that the devil's whispers were just that. Sarah had cried when he broke it off, whispering, "I thought you loved me." Paul, he hadn't. Not like that. Not like the fire that ignited when Andrew ruffled his hair after a long day, or when their eyes met across the dinner table, holding a beat too long. The police sirens wailed in the distance now, cutting through the stunned silence of the congregation. Mrs. Abernathy, the organist with her blue rinse perm, clutched her pearls and murmured, "Lord have mercy." Father Elias sank to his knees, pulling Paul down with him, their foreheads touching in a mockery of prayer. "Forgive me," the old man whispered, but Paul wasn't sure who he was talking to. Andrew knelt too, forming their unholy trinity, his calloused hand enveloping Paul's. "Easy, kid," he murmured, voice like gravel wrapped in velvet. "We got this. Whatever this is." But they didn't. Not really. Because as the Elmwood PD cruisers screeched into the parking lot, lights painting the steeple red and blue, Paul felt the first crack in the dam. The secret wasn't just his, it was theirs. And Andrew's eyes, those deep hazel pools that had anchored him through every storm, flickered with something new. Guilt? Fear? Or the same hunger Paul had buried for years? The interrogation room at the station smelled like stale coffee and regret, the kind that seeped into your pores and never washed out. Paul sat under the harsh fluorescence, wrists cuffed to the table more for show than safety. Deputy Harlan, a deacon at St. Mary's, had muttered something about family business when he'd slapped them on. Father Elias paced outside the one-way glass, his reflection a ghost in the mirror, while Andrew leaned against the wall, arms crossed, looking every bit the protector. But Paul could see the strain in his brother's shoulders, the way his jaw ticked like a bomb timer. Sheriff Tate, a bear of a man with a mustache that hid his tobacco chew, slid into the chair opposite Paul. "Son, you want to tell me what that was about?" "Blasting out the virgins I ain't exactly a cry for help. It's a felony." Paul's laugh was bitter, scraping his throat raw. "Cry for help? Nah, Sheriff. That was a declaration of war." Tate leaned in, breath sour as fermented apples. "War on what? Your pa's the finest man in 3 counties. Served this town through floods, recessions, that meth wave in '09. You got daddy issues or what?" Daddy issues. The phrase hung there, innocuous as a hymn, but it sliced Paul open. Father Elias wasn't just a dad. He was the embodiment of Elmwood's moral compass, the man who'd baptized Paul in the chilly waters of Mill Creek, who'd prayed over his fevers and fasted when Paul strayed. But the church had become a cage, its bars forged from Leviticus and love withheld. Paul had confessed once, in whispers to the confessional screen, about the impure thoughts. Father Elias's response? A week of fasting and a locked door on the liquor cabinet, the one Andrew raided when the nights got too quiet. "I ain't got issues," Paul said finally, meeting Tate's eyes. "I got truths." Ones that don't fit in your Sunday school. The sheriff sighed, rubbing his temples. Look, boy. Your pa's vouching for you. Says it was an accident, cleaning the old gun for hunting season. Andrew too. But folks are talking. That window's got symbolism, Paul. Mary's the mother of mercy. You trying to tell us something? Andrew's voice cut through the speaker, calm but edged. Enough, Tate. Let the kid breathe. The door opened, and there he was, filling the frame like a sentinel. Tate grumbled but stood, clapping Andrew on the back. Your call, Hawthorne's. But charges are pending till the dust settles. Alone now, Andrew uncuffed Paul with keys borrowed from the deputy, his fingers lingering on the red welts. You scared the shit out of me, Paulie. Thought I'd lost you. Paul rubbed his wrists, the skin tender as his heart. Lost me? You've been losing me since I was 16, Drew. Every time you looked away, the words hung heavy, the air thickening like before a squall. Andrew's face crumpled, just for a second, before the mask slipped back. Don't do this now. Not here. But Paul was done with nows and nots. He stood, close enough to feel the heat radiating off Andrew's flannel shirt, smell the motor oil and mint gum that was pure him. Why not? Dad's out there spinning his yarn. Town's gonna eat it up. Prodigal son, redeemed by prayer. But you and me, we're the punchline. Andrew's hand shot out, gripping Paul's arm. Not hard, but firm, like anchoring a boat in chop. You're my brother, Paul. Blood and bone. That don't change. Paul's laugh was a sob. Brother? That's your line? You've been more dad than him since Mom bailed. Tucking me in, fixing my messes, telling me it'd get better. But it ain't, Drew. It ain't ever gonna. The confession clawed its way out, raw and bleeding, the years of stolen glances in the garage, Andrew's laugh booming as they rebuilt a '72 Chevy, the brush of knuckles that sent sparks up Paul's spine. The night after Sarah, when Andrew held him as he cried, their bodies pressed too close on the sagging couch, and Paul had almost closed the gap. Andrew released him, stepping back as if burned. I know, he whispered, voice breaking the dam. I know what you're saying. And it kills me. The admission was a grenade. Pin pulled. Paul's world tilted, the interrogation room shrinking to the space between them. Then why? The door banged open. Father Elias, pale as communion wafer, flanked by Tate. Time to go home. Sons. Home. The word tasted like ash. As they piled into Andrew's battered Ford F-150, the engine rumbling to life under the sodium lamps of the station lot, Paul stared out at the cornfields silvered by moonlight. Secrets were like weeds in Ohio soil, stubborn, choking. And his family's garden was overgrown. Back at the parsonage, the Victorian creaked under the weight of silence. Father Elias retreated to his study, the door clicking shut like a judge's gavel. Andrew poured 2 fingers of bourbon, contraband from the shed, and handed one to Paul without a word. They sat on the back porch, the swing groaning under their combined bulk, fireflies winking like conspirators in the yard. Talk to me, Andrew said finally, his voice a low rumble. Paul swirled the amber liquid, the burn in his throat a poor substitute for the one in his chest. I pulled that trigger for you, Drew. For us. Dad's sermons. They're killing me. Flee from temptation, he says. But temptations got your face. Andrew drained his glass, Adam's apple bobbing. Paulie, listen. But Paul cut him off, the words tumbling like a flood. No. You listen. I tried, man. For him. Dated girls. Prayed till my knees bled. Even thought about shipping out like you did. But every night, it's you in my head. The way you smell like pine and sweat after chopping wood. How you sang Sweet Caroline off-key at my graduation party. Arm around me like I was the only one in the room. Tears tracked hot down Paul's cheeks. And he didn't wipe them. I love you, Andrew. Not like a brother. Like a man loves another man. And it's tearing me apart. The swing stilled. Andrew's face was a mask of anguish, etched deep by years of holding the line. He set his glass down, hands flexing as if to push away phantoms. You think you're alone in that? Christ, Paul, I've been fighting it since you were knee-high. Watching you grow into this strong, smart, too damn beautiful for this podunk town. His voice cracked, hazel eyes glistening. But I'm the big brother. The one who's supposed to protect you. Not ruin you. Paul's heart stuttered. Ruin? Loving me would be salvation. Drew. He leaned in, breath mingling, the porch light casting their shadows long and tangled. For a heartbeat, Andrew's lips parted, and Paul tasted possibility, salt and sorrow and something electric. Then Andrew pulled back, standing abruptly, the swing chains rattling. Can't. Won't. Dad's the church, Paul. We're the scandal waiting to happen. He fled inside, leaving Paul with the crickets chorus and a bourbon that tasted like regret. Dawn broke over Elmwood like a reluctant confession, pink streaks bleeding into the gray sky above the parsonage. Paul hadn't slept, couldn't, with Andrew's words looping like a bad sermon. I'm the big brother. He'd paced the creaky floorboards of his childhood room, posters of Nolan Ryan and the Buckeyes peeling at the edges, relics of a boy who'd dreamed of escape via fastballs and football scholarships that never came. College was a pipe dream. Father Elias needed him for youth group carpools and sermon outlines, Andrew for shop labor when the harvest trucks broke down. Duty was the Hawthorne gospel, etched deeper than any tattoo. Downstairs, the kitchen hummed with forced normalcy. Father Elias at the stove, flipping pancakes with a spatula that had seen better decades, his cassock swapped for a flannel shirt that hung loose on his frame. Morning, son, he said, not looking up, voice steady as a pulpit thump. Paul slid into a chair, the wood cool against his bare arms. Dad. The word felt foreign now, laced with the gunpowder tang from yesterday. Andrew was absent, probably at the shop already, burying himself in grease and gears to outrun the night. They ate in silence, forks scraping plates like accusations. Finally, Father Elias cleared his throat. About yesterday. The town's buzzing, but I smoothed it. Told him it was stress, your job at the mill laying off folks. Paul snorted, syrup sticking in his craw. Stress. Yeah. That's one word for it. The old man's eyes, faded blue like wash denim, met his. Paul, I've pastored long enough to know when a man's soul is wrestling demons. Whatever's eating you, talk to me. Or to the Lord. Paul pushed his plate away, the half-eaten stack mocking him. The Lord's got enough on his plate with wars and famines. This is between us. Family. Father Elias's face softened, lines deepening like furrows in fallow earth. Families the Lord's design. Son. Blood and bond. Your mother's leaving. It broke something in all of us. Andrew stepped up, God bless him, and I leaned on the cloth. But you're the hope, Paul. The one who'll carry this forward. Carry what? The hypocrisy? The lies? Paul bit back the retort, standing instead. Gonna help Drew at the shop. Bills don't pay themselves. He bolted before the sermon could swell, grabbing his jacket from the hook by the door, a faded Levi's denim, threadbare at the cuffs from too many hay bales and heartaches. The drive to Hawthorne Auto Repair was a blur of cornstalk sentinels and radio static, some country crooner warbling about lost loves and pickup trucks. Elmwood's main drag was stirring, Betty's diner slinging hash, the feed store unloading sacks of seed, Old Man Wilkins sweeping his porch with a broom that had outlived 2 wives. Andrew's shop squatted at the edge, a Quonset hut patched with corrugated tin, the sign hand-painted in block letters that leaned like drunks. Paul's truck, Andrew's hand-me-down '98 Tacoma, rattled to a stop beside a rusted combine harvester, its engine gutted like a fish on the bayou. Inside, the air was thick with oil and ozone, fluorescent tubes buzzing overhead. Andrew was under a Chevy Impala, legs sticking out like surrendered flags, creeper wheels silent. Paul cleared his throat. Need a hand, a beat. Then the wheels rolled, Andrew emerging grease-smeared, wiping his brow with a rag that left streaks. Yeah. Torque wrench on the lift. That John Deere in the bay. No eye contact. Just the rhythm of work, tools clinking. Radio tuned low to ESPN recaps. They moved in sync. Years of brotherhood, a well-oiled machine. Paul handing sockets. Andrew grunting approvals. The Impala's underbelly yielding to their assault. Mid-morning, the shop emptied farmers to fields. Tate swinging by for his cruiser's oil change but waving off when he saw the Hawthorne tension. Alone again, Paul couldn't hold it. Last night. You ran. Andrew straightened, wiping hands on his overalls, the zipper glinting like a scar. Had to. You're fire, Polly, and I'm dry tinder. One spark, and the whole damn town burns. Paul stepped closer, the concrete floor gritty under his boots. Let it burn. I'm tired of ashes. Their breaths synced, chests rising, and Andrew's resolve cracked, just enough for his hand to ghost Paul's cheek, thumb tracing the stubble. Me too, he murmured, voice husky. God help me. Me too. The kiss was inevitable, a storm front colliding. Andrew's lips crashed into Paul's, rough and desperate, tasting of coffee and calluses, years of restraint unraveling in a tangle of tongues and teeth. Paul fisted Andrew's shirt, pulling him flush, the world narrowing to the heat between them, the press of hips, the groan that rumbled from Andrew's chest like thunder. They stumbled against the workbench, tools scattering like startled birds, Andrew's hands roaming Paul's back, dipping low to grip his ass with a possessiveness that made Paul arch and whimper. But Elmwood intruded, as it always did. Tires crunched on gravel, the mail truck, early for once. They sprang apart, Andrew cursing under his breath, Paul adjusting his jeans with shaking hands. Later, Andrew promised, eyes dark with unfinished business. Tonight. My place. Paul's nod was fervent, heart hammering like a piston. Andrew's place was the Airstream trailer parked behind the shop, a silver bullet from his Marine days, tricked out with solar panels and a mini-fridge stocked with PBR. It was sanctuary, far from the parsonage's prying stained glass. Dusk painted the sky bruise purple as Paul slipped in, the door latching with a click that sealed their pact. Andrew waited in the low light of a lava lamp, shirt unbuttoned to reveal the tattooed eagle on his pec, Semper Fi inked over scar tissue from Fallujah. "Come here," he said, voice gravel low, and Paul went, shedding clothes like sins. They made love with the urgency of the damned, slow at first, exploratory, Andrew's mouth mapping Paul's collarbone, nipples pebbling under reverent licks. "Beautiful," Andrew breathed, hands worshipping the lean muscle of Paul's runner's legs, the freckles dusting his shoulders like stars. Paul gasped as fingers breached him, slick with lube from the nightstand. Andrew's whispers a litany. "I've wanted this forever, kid." Dreamed it. When Andrew entered him, it was revelation. Full, aching, perfect, their bodies sinking in a rhythm older than time, sweat slick and sacred. Paul's cries echoed off aluminum walls, Andrew's name a prayer on his lips as climax shattered them both, collapsing in a heap of limbs and labored breaths. After, tangled in sheets that smelled of them, Andrew traced lazy circles on Paul's chest. "This changes everything." Paul nuzzled his neck, inhaling the musk of sex and safety. Good change, but doubt flickered. Father Elias's face in his mind, the town's whisper network primed to ignite. Andrew sensed it, pulling him closer. "We'll figure it together, yet secrets have teeth." The next week blurred in stolen moments. Quickies in the shop bathroom, hands brushing at family dinner, Andrew's foot hooking Paul's under the table like a lifeline. Father Elias noticed the shift, the lighter steps, the shared glances, but chalked it to post-crisis bonding. "Proud of you boys," he'd say, clapping shoulders. Paul basked in it, the guilt a dull ache drowned by Andrew's touch. Then came the letter. Tucked in the parsonage mailbox. Innocuous cream envelope with no return address. Postmarked Cleveland. Father Elias opened it at breakfast, face draining of color as he read. "Elias," it began, typed crisp, "the boy you call son isn't yours. Blood test from 98 confirms, your wife's fling with the mill foreman. Andrew's the only Hawthorne by birth. Paul's a cuckoo in the nest. Keep preaching hypocrisy, or this goes public. No signature, just a PS. Ask your eldest about the rest." The old man crumpled it, but not before Paul glimpsed the words from across the table. "Dad," Father Elias bolted, muttering about Vespers. Andrew, arriving for coffee, found Paul white-knuckled on the envelope. "What the fuck is this?" Paul's voice trembled. Andrew scanned it, face hardening to stone. Nothing. Junk. But his eyes, those hazel anchors, darted away, the first lie Paul had ever caught. Betrayal bloomed slow, poison ivy rash. Paul confronted him that night in the airstream, rain pattering like accusations on the roof. "You're hiding something. That letter, it's about us." "About me." Andrew paced the cramped space, a caged bear. "It's bullshit, Paulie. Some asshole stirring shit." But Paul pressed, voice rising. "Blood test? Mom's affair? And you knew?" Andrew stopped, deflating. "Yeah. Found out when I enlisted insurance physical. That Elias. He begged me not to tell you. Said it didn't matter. You were his in every way that counted." Paul reeled, the trailer spinning. And you kept it? From me? While I was spilling my guts. Loving you like a fool. Andrew reached, but Paul jerked back. It was to protect you. Family's what we make. Not DNA. The fight escalated. Words like shrapnel. Paul's accusations of paternalism. Andrew's defenses laced with marine grit. I'm trying to hold this together, Andrew roared. A vase shattered, Paul's throw, glass spraying like tears. In the wreckage, truth clawed out. There's more, Andrew admitted, sinking to the bed. That letter? Not the first. Blackmail. Started last year. Some prick from my unit, dishonorable discharge. Queer as sin. Caught wind of. Somehow. Wants money to stay quiet. Paul's blood ran cold. Us? Before we even? Andrew nodded, shame etching deeper. I paid. 6 months now. Thought I could handle it solo. Keep you clean. The betrayal landed like the shotgun's echo. Deafening. Final. Paul dressed in the dim light, rain soaking him as he stormed out. You don't get to decide my dirt, Drew. Not anymore. The door slammed, leaving Andrew in the dark with his secrets, the first fracture in their fragile Eden. Elmwood's autumn carnival rolled in like a traveling circus of denial, booths hawking funnel cakes and face paint, the Ferris wheel creaking against a sky heavy with harvest moon. Paul wandered the midway alone, the letters' poison seeping deeper, turning every laugh into accusation. He dodged Andrew for days, holing up at the mill's night shift, sorting lumber until his hands blistered and his mind numbed. Father Elias had tried interventions, Bible studies laced with worried glances, but Paul waved them off, the parsonage feeling like a mausoleum now, ghosts of what-ifs whispering in the walls. The blackmailer haunted him, a specter without face. Who was this ghost from Andrew's past, dredging up DNA lies and closet doors? Paul nursed a warm bud at the beer tent, eyes scanning the crowd. Sarah Jenkins giggling with her new beau, the mayor's kid winning a goldfish, old Wilkins nursing a flask by the cornhole boards. Then, cutting through the hay bales, came Levi, Andrew's old Marine buddy, the one who'd crashed a Hawthorne barbecue once, all buzzcut and bravado. Levi, with his sly grin and tattoo sleeves that screamed regret. Paul stiffened, beer forgotten. Levi, the unit's loose cannon, drummed out for conduct unbecoming, code for caught with a corporal in the showers. Levi spotted him, sauntering over with a six-pack swing. Hawthorne Jr. Heard you made the papers. Church fireworks. His laugh was oil slick, eyes appraising Paul like merchandise. Small world. Huh? Your bro still fixing my rust bucket. Paul forced a nod, pulse thundering. Yeah. What brings you to bumfuck? Ohio. Levi shrugged, popping a can. Nostalgia. And debts. Andy owes me, old poker tabs from Kuwait. Debts. The word twisted like a knife. Paul probed, casual as he could, shop talk. Marine yarns. Levi dropped hints, nights in the desert. Secrets swapped over MREs. Your brother's got layers, kid. Deep ones. Saved my ass once. But everyone pays eventually. By the time Levi wandered off, arm around a carny girl, Paul's gut churned. He texted Andrew, meet me. Now. Fairgrounds. The reply was instant. On way. Andrew arrived disheveled, flannel untucked, face shadowed by the tilt-a-whirl's lights. Paulie, shut up, Paul hissed, dragging him behind the porta-potties, the midways in a merciful veil. Levi. It's him, isn't it? The ghost. Andrew's silence was damning, head dropping. How'd you? Doesn't matter. He's bleeding you dry. For what? Us? Andrew's jaw clenched. For everything. He knows about the blood test. Overheard Elias drunk once. On leave. And he guessed about me. The feelings. For you. Paul's world fractured further. Guessed? Or you told him? Andrew recoiled. Hell no, but Levi's a bloodhound for weakness. Cornered me last year, post-discharge. Said he'd spill to the VFW, the church, unless I ponied up. The pieces slotted, Andrew's late nights at the bar, the shop's dipping till. Self-sacrifice, Hawthorne style, bleeding for the ones he loved, silent as a lamb. Paul's anger softened to ache. Why not tell me? We could have faced it. Andrew's eyes glistened, vulnerable in the neon glow. Couldn't risk you. Not when we just started. They stood there, inches apart, the air electric with unresolved hunger. Paul's hand found Andrew's, fingers lacing despite the mud. No more solos, Drew. We're in this, blood or not. Andrew pulled him close, foreheads touching, breaths mingling with cotton candy sweetness. Promise. The kiss was softer this time, apologetic, lips brushing, tongues tentative, a bridge over the chasm. But Levi's shadow loomed. As they broke apart, Paul spotted him across the fairground, watching with a smirk that chilled deeper than November wind. Father Elias's study was a reliquary of repression. Leather-bound Bibles stacked like fortifications, a crucifix glaring from the mantel, the air thick with pipe tobacco and unspoken grief. Paul burst in that Sunday after service, the congregation's amens still echoing as Father Elias shrugged off his vestments. Son, service ran long, Mrs. Abernathy's arthritis. Cut the bullshit, Dad. Paul interrupted, slamming the letter on the desk. The old man froze, color fleeing like sand through fingers. Where did you? Doesn't matter. Andrew knew. You both did. Lied to my face for years. Elias sank into his wingback, aging a decade in seconds. Paul, it wasn't a lie. You are my son, every bedtime story, every scraped knee. DNA's just biology. God's handiwork is in the heart. But Paul paced, fury a live wire. Heart? You preached purity while Mom was screwing the foreman? And Andrew, God, Dad, he's more father to me than you, carrying your secrets like Atlas. Elias's eyes welled, hands trembling as he lit his pipe, the flame dancing erratic. Your mother. She strayed once, in weakness. I forgave. Turned it to the cloth. Andrew found out by accident insurance for the Corps. I begged him, protect him, son. Don't shatter the boy. He did. For love, love. The word twisted anew. Paul stopped, voice dropping. And my feelings? You knew. The confessions. Flee temptation, you said. But what if it's not temptation? What if it's me? Elias stood, slow as revelation, placing hands on Paul's shoulders, frail now, but steady. I suspected. Hoped prayer would align you. But the Lord's grace is wider than my fears. If it's sin, it's mine for not seeing sooner. Tears carved channels in the old man's cheeks, and Paul pulled him into an embrace, the first in years, bodies rigid then yielding. I'm gay, Dad. And I love Andrew. Not like family. Like everything. The admission hung, a thunderclap in the quiet. Elias pulled back, searching Paul's face, stormy grays to faded blues. Andrew, horror dawned, then something deeper, understanding, laced with sorrow. My boys. Oh, Lord. He crossed to the window, staring at the churchyard where leaves swirled like confetti for the damned. The town. The cloth. Paul waited, heart in throat. Finally, Elias turned. Go to him. Be true. Handle the rest. It wasn't absolution, but it was a start, a crack in the stained glass. Emboldened, Paul drove to the shop, but Andrew wasn't there. The airstream was dark, truck gone. Panic clawed, texts unanswered, calls to voicemail. He raced home, bursting into the parsonage to find Father Elias on the phone, face ashen. Levi, the old man said, hanging up. He called. Demands 10 grand by dawn, or the letters go viral. To the bishop. The Gazette. Paul's blood iced. Where's Andrew? Elias's voice broke. Went to meet him. Alone. Said something about ending it. The Ohio backroads were black veins under starlight. Paul's Tacoma eating miles toward the old quarry. Levi's texted coordinates. Intercepted by Elias. Gravel sprayed as he skidded to a halt, headlights piercing the fog like judgment. There, Andrew's truck, doors open, silhouettes grappling by the water's edge. Levi, wiry and feral, pistol in hand, the same damn Remington? No, a Glock, glinting mean. Back off. Preacher boy, Levi snarled as Paul approached. Andrew zip-tied to a rusted beam, lip split and bleeding. Your bro hears light in the loafers, spilled it all in the sandbox. Time to pay up, or swim with the fishes. Andrew's eyes met Paul's, fierce with warning. Run, kid. Get Dad. But Paul couldn't. Adrenaline surged, and he lunged, tackling Levi into the mud, the gun skittering across rocks. Fists flew, Levi's cheap shots glancing off Paul's mill-honed arms, Andrew roaring curses from his bonds. Paul landed a haymaker, Levi's nose crunching, but the vet fought dirty, knee to groin dropping Paul wheezing. Fucking hawthorns, Levi spat, retrieving the Glock, aiming wild. All talk, no gospel. The shot rang out, not Levi's, but from the treeline. Father Elias, shotgun braced, smoke curling from the barrel. Levi crumpled, clutching thigh, blood blooming dark. Elias Hawthorne, the old man thundered, voice pure pulpit fire, advancing like wrath incarnate. You prey on my sons? The Lord says vengeance is his, but mercy's mine today. Sirens wailed distant, someone's phone tree at work. Andrew sagged in relief as Paul freed him, their embrace fierce amid the chaos, Levi groaning as Tate's deputies swarmed. In the aftermath, the quarry's fog lifted like absolution. Elias faced the sheriff's questions with Rector's calm. Self-defense. Intruder with a weapon. Levi, zip-tied in the cruiser, spat curses but cracked under lights, confessing the blackmail, the DNA dig, even his own demons from the core. Just wanted even, he muttered. Andy played hero, I played grunt. Back at the parsonage. Dawn gilding the steeple. The hawthorns gathered. Not in prayer, but in raw honesty. Elias poured coffee. Hands steady now. No more secrets, he decreed. Andrew nodded, arm around Paul, thumb stroking his knuckles. None. Paul leaned in, voice soft. Love you, Dad. Both of you. Elias's smile was tentative. Humanistic, flawed man, not flawless father. And I you, son. Blood or borrowed. You're mine. But peace was fragile as autumn leaves. Whispers started Monday. Levi's ravings in lockup. Fairy tales about the brothers. The Gazette ran a vague local hero foils blackmailer piece. But tongues wagged at Betty's, eyes lingering on Andrew and Paul at the pump. Father Elias preached on Sunday, not fire and brimstone, but Ruth and Naomi, bonds unbreakable. Love, he said, voice cracking, is the Lord's wild card. Winter clamped down on Elmwood like a vice. Snow drifts burying the corn stubble. The parsonage's chimney belching defiance against the gale. Paul and Andrew navigated their new normal with cautious grace. Mornings tangled in the airstream. Andrew's lips on Paul's neck as alarm buzzed. Evenings at the shop. Hands linking over carburetors. Love woven into the mundane. Father Elias adapted in fits. A gruff "be safe" when Paul stayed over. A dog-eared copy of The Velveteen Rabbit, left on his bedstand. Becoming real, the note read. It was progress, jagged but true, the Hawthorne men learning to breathe without the weight of masks. Yet betrayal's echo lingered. Levi's trial loomed in Toledo, a media sideshow with VFW vets picketing for justice and queer activists sniffing scandal. Andrew testified first, stoic in his dress blues borrowed from storage, recounting the blackmail without flinching at the unnatural affections jabs from the prosecutor. Paul watched from the gallery, heart swelling at Andrew's unflinching gaze. My brother's my world. Ain't no shame in that, the courtroom murmured, but Elias, beside Paul, squeezed his hand, silent solidarity. Paul's turn came mid-January. The county courthouse a drafty tomb of marble and malice. He took the stand in his best button-down, hair combed, but nerves jangled like loose change. The DA, a slick weasel from Cincinnati, leaned in, Mr. Hawthorne, your family dynamic, unconventional, yes, brother acting as father figure. Intimate, even, Paul swallowed, meeting Andrew's eyes across the room. Steady hazel, urging strength. Intimate? Yeah. Love like that don't fit boxes. Andrew raised me when Dad was preaching. Mom gone. He's brother, Dad, everything. And yeah, we're together. Lovers. That change facts? Levi stalked us, bled us for it. End of story. Gasps rippled. The jury's farm wives clutching purses. The judge banging gavel. But Paul's truth landed like fresh snow, clean, covering old stains. Elias testified last, voice resonant. My sons saved each other. Saved me. Grace isn't earned. It's given. Levi, shackled and sullen, folded under cross-exam, trading testimony for leniency, manslaughter plea, 5 years. As cuffs clicked, he shot Andrew a look not hate, but hollow envy. Wish I'd had that, he muttered. Andrew nodded. Just once, forgiveness, Hawthorne hard won. Spring thawed the secrets, but unearthed new conflicts. Elmwood's annual fish fry at the VFW Hall was neutral ground. Politicians glad-handing, kids chasing fireflies in the dusk. Paul and Andrew arrived together, hands brushing but not clasping, testing waters. Father Elias worked the grill, apron smeared with sauce. His sermon for the night a folksy yarn on second chances. But midway through, Harlan the deputy cornered them by the cooler, breath-beery. Heard the trial dirt. Boys. Town split. Some say abomination. Others live and let. But your pa? Pushing 60. Heart ticker. Stress could kill him. The warning stung. A barb in the ribs. Andrew bristled, arm slinging protective around Paul. Mind your lane, Harlan. But later, under the string lights, doubt crept. He's right, Andrew murmured, passing Paul a plate of perch. Dad's bending over backward. Can't ask more. Paul forked a bite, flaky and bitter. We're not asking. We're being. Yet the glances from tables, Mrs. Jenkins's pursed lips, the mayor's averted eyes chafed like wool. That night, in the airstream, passion turned tender, Andrew's touches reverent, as if memorizing. If it breaks him, Paul silenced him with a kiss, fierce. Won't. We won't let it. Betrayal struck from within, insidious as rust. Father Elias collapsed mid-sermon that Pentecost, clutching chest in the pulpit, and the Spirit descended like, then crumpling, congregation erupting in chaos. Paul, in the sound booth tweaking mics for youth band, vaulted the rail, Andrew bursting from the vestibule. They knelt either side, Elias's hand feeble in theirs, paramedics swarming with oxygen masks. My boys, he wheezed, eyes fluttering. Proud. So proud. The Elmwood R was a frenzy. Beeps and bustle. Tate pacing the hall, offering coffees laced with sympathy. Tests confirmed. Angina. Stress-induced. The doctor's words a scalpel. Bottled emotions. Reverend. Time to exhale. In the recovery room, Elias rallied, hooked to monitors like a cybernetic patriarch. Paul and Andrew flanked the bed, hands linked over the rail, defiant, visible. You heard the doc, Paul said, voice thick. No more bottles. Elias's laugh was wheezy, but genuine. Learned that in seminary. Vowed celibacy after your mom, thought it penance. But love, it's oxygen. His gaze sharpened on their clasped hands. You too. It's right. Scared me blind. But right. Andrew's throat bobbed. We didn't mean to. Elias waved it off. Meant to protect. Failed spectacularly. But from here, I see clearer. Preach it from the rooftops if you want. Or quiet. Just be. The blessing settled like manna, but conflict brewed beyond the walls. The bishop arrived Tuesday, a hawkish man from Columbus in starched collar, summoned by concerns from the vestry. Over tea in the study, he grilled Elias. Scandal. Elias. Your son's outburst in court, unchristian. And rumors of impropriety between brothers. Elias, frail but fierce, steepled fingers. Impropriety? Love. Bishop. Plain as the Gospels. Paul's gay. Andrew's his partner. They're good men, better than my sermons. The bishop blanched, sputtering canon law, but Elias held firm. Resign me if you must. But the cloths for healing, not hiding. Paul and Andrew eavesdropped from the hall, hearts pounding. When the bishop left, frosty handshake, vague prayers, Elias called them in. It's done. Retirement by fall. We'll weather. But Paul saw the toll, the pallor, the tremor. That night, alone with Andrew, he broke. We did this. Pushed too hard. Andrew held him, strong arms a harbor. Nah. Truth did. And we'll carry him through. Summer-scorched Elmwood. Heat waves miraging the fields, mirroring the simmering town divide. Petitions circulated, half for Elias's honorable exit, half decrying moral decay. Betty's became battleground. Pro-Hawthorne pie sales funding a welcome home for Levi's victims. Ironic. That. Counter-protests with rainbow flags smuggled from Toledo. Paul manned the shop solo while Andrew ferried Elias to cardiologist in Cleveland. Their dates reduced to porch swings and stolen kisses under harvest moon. Climax brewed at the county fair, bigger than carnival, with tractor pulls and livestock auctions. Elmwood's pulse in one sweaty weekend. The Hawthorns had a booth, Elias signing devotionals, Paul flipping burgers, Andrew charming 4-H kids with engine tricks. It was facade, fragile as spun sugar. Then, mid-afternoon, Levi's shadow returned. Not the man, but his venom. A blogger from Akron, exposing the trial via anonymous sources. Parsonage perversion, brothers in sin, father's complicity. Screenshots flooded X. Tagged Elmwood scandal, going viral in Bible Belt feeds. Chaos erupted. Booths emptied, whispers turning to shouts. Sodomites! From a red-faced farmer, countered by hypocrites from urban transplants. Paul shielded Elias as eggs splattered the tablecloth. Andrew wading into the fray, fists clenched but held. Tate's deputies formed a cordon, but the damage was done. Elias clutching chest again, gray-faced, rushed to the ER as sirens wailed. In the hospital vigil, Paul raged at Andrew. This is the betrayal. Levi's ghost killing us slow. Andrew's face crumpled, guilt a shroud. I brought him here. My past. But Elias, stabilized once more, beckoned from the bed. No blame, sons. This is the world's fear, not ours. His voice, weak but warm, forged steel in them. Fight smart. Love louder. Fall painted Elmwood in fire. Maples blazing along Mill Creek. Pumpkins grinning from porches like jack-o'-lantern sentinels. Elias's retirement loomed. A bittersweet valediction. Final sermon at St. Mary's. The vestry's compromise. Amicable separation with pension intact. No heresy hunts. The town fractured further. Boycotts at the shop. But bumper crop of supporters. Widows baking casseroles. Youth group kids painting pride murals on the Quonset hut. Washed off by rain. But the intent lingered. Paul and Andrew weathered it entwined. Their love a quiet revolution. Lazy Sundays in the Airstream. Andrew's head in Paul's lap as they binge old westerns. Fingers tracing tattoos like Braille stories. Yet the climax crested not in violence, but vulnerability. Elias's last service drew a crowd, curious, contrite, combative. The sanctuary swelled, pews creaking under bodies from 3 counties, air thick with anticipation and autumn chill seeping through cracks. Paul and Andrew sat front row, hands hidden but linked, Elias ascending the pulpit in his Sunday best. No cassock, just slacks and a sweater vest, human as the rest. He gripped the edges, knuckles blanching, Then began not with scripture, but story. "Beloved," he said, voice resonant despite the rasp, "I've pastored these walls 30 years, buried babies and brides, baptized rebels and saints. But my greatest sermon lived in my home. Eyes swept the congregation, Mrs. Abernathy dabbing tears, Harlan shifting uneasy, Sarah Jenkins nodding fierce. My sons, Andrew, who came home a hero and held this family when I faltered. Paul, my light, fierce, faithful, unafraid." Pauses waited, Elias's gaze locking on them. They love each other. Deeply. Romantically. And in that, they've taught me grace unearned. Murmurs swelled. Shocked gasps. Amens from the back. Elias pressed on. Undaunted. "I failed them once, hid truths to preserve a facade. Blood secrets. Heart secrets. Nearly lost them to my fear. But love, it's not Leviticus chains, it's Galatians freedom." He opened his Bible, not to fire verses, but to a dog-eared page. There is no longer Jew or Greek, slave or free, male or female, for you are all one in Christ. A beat, then, softer, or brother and brother. The world's uncomfortable with wild love. But God's, is a banquet, not a battlefield. Paul's throat tightened, tears blurring Andrew's profile, strong jaw set, eyes shining. The sanctuary held breath as Elias descended, not to the altar, but to them, hands on shoulders. "Bless you, my boys. Go forth." The applause started hesitant. Claps from the young, then swelling, a wave crashing over judgment. Not unanimous. Walkouts dotted the aisles, whispers of schism. But enough stayed, enough to lift Elias on cheers as he exited. The Hawthorne Trinity arm in arm down the steps. Outside, under the steeple's shadow, conflict resolved in catharsis. Reporters lurked, Columbus Dispatch, even a Cleveland blogger, but Tate herded them back. Andrew pulled Paul aside, against the oak that shaded their childhood swings. That was him, saving us. Paul nodded, kissing him fierce, uncaring of eyes. Us saving him. Elias approached, slower now, but smiling, human, humbled. Dinner? Betty's. My treat. They went, the diner a microcosm. Half the town turning backs, half raising toasts. Sarah slid into their booth, squeezing Paul's hand. Took guts. Proud of you. Whispers faded to white noise. Love the loudest voice. Winter returned gentler, snow blanketing sins. Elias moved to a bungalow by the lake, part-time chaplaincy at the hospital, fishing with Andrew on weekends, debating theology over Paul's chili. The shop thrived. Ironic bumper stickers, fixed by brothers, winking at patrons. Levi wrote from prison, not apology, but amends. Saw your old man's clip online. Wish I'd had a preacher like that. Andrew burned it, but Paul kept the envelope, reminder that even villains seek light. One stormy February eve, the airstream rocked in winds off Erie. Paul and Andrew cocooned by quilts and candlelight. Future, Andrew murmured, tracing Paul's spine. Cleveland? Bigger pond. Less stairs. Paul considered, nuzzling closer. Or here. Make Elmwood ours, shop expansions. Dad's lake house B&B for runaways. Andrew chuckled, deep and warm. Ambitious, but his eyes held dreams. Marriage equality fresh in Ohio. A ring someday. Vows under that same oak. Betrayal's scar faded to lessen. Secrets corrode. Truth liberates. Elias's health steadied. Heart mended by unburdening. He officiated a commitment picnic that summer. Paul and Andrew in linen shirts. Hay bales for pews. 50 souls picnicking under tents. No rings yet, but promises. In all storms, we anchor. Elias's blessing. May your love be as fierce as Ohio wind, as deep as its rivers. Years blurred. Paul's novel on small-town queers hitting indie shelves. Andrew's shop franchising to Mansfield. Elias graying gracefully with a lady from the library. Her widow's laugh filling the bungalow. Elmwood evolved. Pride flags at fair entrances. Mary's rainbow stole for Ally Sundays. Not utopia, bigots lingered. Like Harlan's grumbles, but humanistic progress. Flawed folks fumbling toward light. On their 10th anniversary, the Airstream kiss, Paul and Andrew drove to the quarry. Snow-dusted now. Ghosts long fled. They stood at water's edge. Arms wrapped. Andrew's chin on Paul's shoulder. Worth the shotgun? Paul teased. Andrew's laugh rumbled. Every blast. They kissed into the dusk. Silhouettes against the ice. Love a defiant flame. In America's heartland, where faith and fields collide, they'd carved grace from gravel, a story not of perfection, but persistence. Human, holy. And in quiet moments, Paul whispered thanks to God, or fate, or the brothers who'd broken and built him. Secrets kept no more. Only love, loud and lived.